Welcome to the Interview Podcast, the voice of InterCT. InterCT's aim is to help young athletes become excellent individuals through the vehicle of soccer. Love the game, love to learn, and love to compete at InterCT.
Welcome, episode 5, the Interview Podcast, and it's myself, Leon Othen, joined again by Tom Robinson.
How are we doing, everybody?
And back again, after saying he'd only do one, he loves it, Anthony Quinn.
Back by popular demand, Anthony Quinn.
No word of a lie, I think our subscriptions went up on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed and you want to listen to Anthony, please do so. But no,
I created 5 new YouTube accounts.
So this week, with the season beginning, I would love to give our players some educational material. We've done a lot about talking about InterCT. We've talked about all the things that we've got going on. Oh, look at this. We've got Pedro joining us as well. Pedro Oliveira. I think he's just joining in. Oh, look, you can hear him come along. And like I said, educational. So we'd love to be able to start with ways to start the season. Pedro, welcome. We're halfway through our podcast.
Good morning.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Guest appearance. And what we're saying, Pedro, is we are going to give players and parents a bit of an education on what we expect players to be doing at the start of the season. So, Tom, start us off, because I know you had an issue with equipment for preseason camp.
Yeah, so for me, it's just I rely a lot on first impressions, first of all, because with me, it's I'm usually getting those guys that I've spent the last few years with Coach Leon, and then they're having their first, taste of what we'll call real soccer at that U9 age group. So first of all, it's, make sure you're ready, make sure you're there, trying to get used to that. Leon's environment is much more fun orientated. And then with me, I've got to make sure these guys are prepared to play against some of these really strong clubs that we face on a weekly basis. So for me, that's the first thing, first impressions, make sure, you're showing a willingness to learn, understanding. If you don't understand what we're talking about or asking you to, ask questions and kind of do that. But from an equipment point of view, we got to make sure that we have all the belongings. One of the, I think we touched on it in the last podcast, is making sure you have the correct footwear. I see a lot of new fancy cleats. I think by the time the end of the week happened after the Jamboree, I think I had fixed 15 different people's blisters. So, sometimes getting those nice and fancy cleats, you do have to do a little bit of work with them at home. I remember when I was a kid, my parents used to make me wear them in the bathtub with water in there, just to kind of, ease the sides of them. And then that would hopefully stop the blisters. So from my one, again, cleats, make sure we're not just throwing them in and expecting no blisters. Make sure you've got your shin guards. And as we kind of go through this podcast, I know we're going to start talking about uniform as well, and making sure you're not just wearing some random stuff. We are a little bit lighter and less strict during the summer on uniform, but during the season, we do want our players to be wearing the correct items.
So 2 things are kind of taken from that is your cleats and a bit on the uniform. Anthony, any, I think the days, Tom, to be honest, of throwing kids in the bath might be gone. But
I love that one.
It can't, well, those were the days of the kangaroo leather, right?
That was it, right? You had to soften them.
Anthony, anything your end with regards to cleats?
Not so much with regard to cleats. No, I've not really had as many issues. I mean, I did have a couple of people similar to Tom moaning about, my heel's sore, this is sore. My guys are a little bit older than the guys that Tom are dealing with, so they just kind of grin and bear it a little bit more, and I'm probably not quite as empathetic maybe, or sympathetic as Tom is with his kids. I'm just kind of like, well, you just got either don't play or do play. It's up to you. I can't really force them to carry on, but I'd rather just get on with it most of the time. You just kind of have to get through that. If you have got new cleats, sometimes it will take you, a few sessions to get through that. But not as many issues as Tom seemed to have in that department.
And Pedro, yeah, as a high school coach, have you found anything with cleats and wearing them in? Because obviously you have quite an intense preseason. We were at high school.
Yeah, the same point as Tom. Many of the boys are like wearing new cleats for the new season and getting blisters at preseason, and then asking for band-aids and stuff like that, and adjusting to those cleats for a few of them. But overall, it's been a good preseason for the boys there.
So I think the solution is, before we do get into games, it's great to mention what the problems are. But I think from an education point of view, we need to come up with some solutions. And I think you alluded to it earlier, Tom, just like wearing them in and around the when it's not important, right? Just
Correct.
wearing them in.
Yeah, just walking around the house with them. You can wear them in the back garden is another one. Obviously, we're not telling you to go and scratch up your mum and dad's lovely new flooring. But yeah, if there is an opportunity just to wear them in, just to break, especially I've noticed it with my kids, it's the ones that have that extra bit on top of the shoe where it's kind of, if they don't have the laces, that ends up being really tight. And by the time you've got a pair of socks on, a pair of shin guards on, then, it starts to cause a little bit of issues. But another thing that I did notice on the uniform point of view, it seems like when our kids get to 11v11, they all of a sudden become too cool for shin guards. I don't see it as much in the age group 7v7, 9v9, but we do need to encourage our players to always wear their shin guards. There'll be nothing worse than getting a kick in the shin during preseason or into early starts of the season of practice, and then you can't play for a few weeks because you've got a big bruise on your shin and you can't move around. So, never be too cool for shin guards.
Yeah,
right.
Good point.
Moving on then, uniform. And I think rather than, and of course, as we're going into the second cycle of our contract with Nike, people are, and it was good to see both at the Jamboree, a lot of people with their new uniforms. So I know we're a little bit relaxed right now until everything comes in, but I think uniform really comes down to respect and the perception of what kind of a player you are. Both wearing the correct clothing and the way that you wear it. Pedro, anything on, because I know you're a stickler for having the kids wear the right stuff. Any advice on what coaches think of players that don't wear the right uniform?
Well, for me, I always tell them, before you leave the house, check, number one, that you're wearing the proper uniforms, from t-shirts to socks, and then equipment-wise, shin guards, and you have your cleats on the backpack as well. But I am very well known around the club as stick to the uniform guidelines of that, because I like them to look professional on the field and off the field as well, because also brings a sense of pride of wearing the uniforms and what club they are playing for, and also in high school level as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those at the high school level. If you haven't got your correct cleats, you're sitting on the bench.
Yeah, and I tell the boys and the girls that I coach in the club, is like going to school without a book. Your teacher is not gonna like that.
Yes, it's true. And of course, Anthony, you're that older level. I have seen and witnessed, parents. Don't you hate it with kids your age and say, "Oh, my mum didn't pack it"?
Oh, it drives me crazy. I had to have that conversation last night. The guys that I've coached for a while are usually fine, because I have that conversation with them early on, and I bring it up every single time I see someone wearing the wrong uniform. But some of the guys that are new to me, I kind of, I'm like you said before, Liam, a little bit more relaxed early on, because maybe they don't understand perhaps the standards and the expectations from me. But yeah, I don't like it. For me, it shows an attitude. an attitude towards preparation and commitment. And if you can't even get the uniform right, which is really the only thing we ask you to do, turn up in the correct kit with a ball. If you can't get that simple part correct, then that has me worried for the rest of everything we're trying to do. As Pedro said, yeah, we want to look professional. It's much more aesthetically pleasing when we're all in the right kit, but it's the other side of it as well. Like I said, are we prepared? Are we ready? Or are we just not really thinking about it and just rocking up? So yeah, for me, it's like you said, yeah, oh, well, my mum didn't wash it. All right, well, do you know where the washing machine is? And I know that we had games on Sunday. Some of my guys did play games on Sunday, and then we practiced on Monday, so perhaps it wasn't clean. But I remember the days of being in school. If you had PE and you didn't have a kit, that did not matter. You would get the old kit out of the cupboard that never gets cleaned, that could be either 4 sizes too big or 4 sizes too small, and you just had to wear that. Obviously, we're not going to make the kids do that, but just a little bit more responsibility and accountability from the players, and maybe even it's something the parents can kind of push on to the kids a little bit more. Like, you know, they've got 101 other things to consider. It is the kid at the end of the day that's coming to the practice. They are one of our players. They are on the team. So maybe it's time they start taking a little bit more responsibility for that side of things.
Yeah, just adding flashback to when I had to play my underpants when I was 11 because I forgot my shorts. My little blue wire fronts going around. But so with uniform and cleats, but obviously players can be prepared, Tom, for other things. There's little bits of equipment that players can have just so they're prepared for the season, and we're talking things like water.
Yeah, I think that's where these really nice backpacks come into use. I was joking with some of my players last night, and he just brought his backpack to soccer. There was nothing in his backpack. He didn't bring a soccer ball. It was just a backpack. So that's where I was talking to some of my guys. I was like, listen, like in that backpack, let's have a jacket, let's have a hoodie, let's have an extra pair of socks, an extra pair of shoes if you need to, your slides, your water, a soccer ball. As we transition more into later fall, we will practice outside. It will be cold. Some teams will practice under the lights, and unfortunately, we do still have some players that'll come, early November. They'll be dressed as if still it's September 1st, and it's nice 80-degree day. So I think that's and also as another advantage of the uniform, but also things to bring. That backpack, in my opinion, if you see some of our coaches, they're carrying a backpack. They've got tactics boards, they've got pennies, they've got cleats, they've got a ball pump, they've got multiple things. Just it's on that. I was told like the what if you need that. Okay, well, if you've got room, let's put it in your backpack. Make sure you've got it, and it's better to have it and not need it than be going, oh, it's pouring it down and I'm just stood here in my shorts and t-shirt because I forgot to put my rain jacket in, or I can't play in the game because I forgot my shin guards. That happened to me on Sunday. Another one of my players showed up with no shin guards. The referee, properly doing his job, checked them all in. He said he can't play. And again, what I was talking about with coaches and their coaching bags, I carry an extra pair of shin guards in my coaching bag in case this happens. So obviously that boy was lucky enough to be able to play because I had an extra pair. But again, always have more than what you need, and then you'll never be caught short.
Brilliant. So I kind of dealt with appearance, both cleats, uniform, and other extras. I think, like we talked about, that adds to the perception of the player. Anthony talked about respect, and Pedro a little bit with the discipline and pride. I guess we have our pre-season camp. I'm thinking physically now and how players can be ready physically. And I'm going to start again with you, Pedro, because I know at high school, have they got standard testing? I know since I've been in the States since 2005, I've heard different high schools say, look, you can't get on the high school team if you can't run 3 miles in this time or 2 miles in that time. Do they, I know you've done a lot of high school teams. Have you seen any difference in the standardized testing, Pedro?
Yes, goes by every coaching staff approaches their season. For instance, we obviously focus on conditioning and fitness, but we incorporate soccer balls into the mix, so they understand that and right away how to deal with the season ahead. But mile testing and all that has gone a little bit away from uh, the conditioning part of the season. It's more resistance and tempo and energy, and obviously food wise, staying healthy to sustain that throughout the season as well.
That's great. And I know, Tom, from our, the younger version, we have run summer camps all summer. Are you right? Am I right in saying that the players that have been consistent throughout the summer are looking quite good right now?
Yeah, first of all, I love what Pedro said regarding, the intensity. And I think the game and the coaches are all being educated more. Where we was talking before we started the podcast, the days are gone of players just running consistently 3 miles. It doesn't relate to the game. So, you can get the fitness aspect out in high intensity practices, something that has different, levels. You might jog for a couple of yards and then you'd sprint. And because soccer, you'd be doing something drastically wrong if you just consistently ran 2 miles without stopping. So it's good to hear that that's kind of changing. I know when I first moved here, I was told that you had to do 2 miles in a set time and you had to do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups. And I was stood there when I was much healthier 10 years ago when I moved to the US thinking there's no chance I could even have played in high school in the US, let alone some of the kids that are in that age group now. So it's good to hear that's changing. As for, and Anthony might be able to jump in on this as well, because I will give the coaches credit. They coached a lot more than I did during the summer. I organized a lot and managed a lot and made sure we had players on. But I think Anthony will be able to confirm that the kids that are jumping to my mind that I'm thinking, oh, he was at camp a lot. Then you saw them at the Jamboree over the weekend. There was no rust on those kids. They were playing. They were straight in it. It's like because they never really switched off. Obviously, our camps are a little bit less intense, some of them. But, the fact that they were on camp continuously touching a ball all summer, you could easily see that throughout the Jamboree. I was thinking back to some of the boys who were on my team on Sunday, and I was thinking about who played really well, and it was some of the boys that had either done the USL Hershey Cup group, or it was some of the kids that were always on camp throughout the summer. So I'm assuming, Quinny, you'll have a few of those guys, right? I think a few of your 2010s did quite a lot of our summer programs.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, you can tell, right? Especially when we had the games on Sunday, you can see the kids that have stayed active, that have played throughout the summer, that come back in decent shape and really look like they could go straight into games who wouldn't have a problem with playing a full. We play 70-minute games on a 11v11 field, and some of them would be absolutely fine. But then you've got others that, in fairness, maybe are new to the 11v11 field, so they're not used to covering that distance. But it's not just that; like they're coming in and they're asking for subs after 5-10 minutes. And you've got to try and get to a point where you can play for 70 minutes on that big field if you want to play the full game. So it's really clear for the coaching staff, the guys that have stayed fit, stayed active, kept playing, and the guys that have perhaps spent a little bit more time playing soccer on their PlayStation than they have doing much else. And it's going to be tough for them guys to catch up. I completely agree with what Tom said about you can get fit through playing soccer. Just play at intensity. Make sure the drills are intense. Think about the distances you're having to cover. Like I do a lot of rondos, and obviously in them rondos, it's usually quite a tight space. So if you're defending, you can be working hard, but it's short distances. So take into account that if you are trying to get your players fitter, you might have to play over bigger distances so they're covering a little bit more to get their miles into the legs. But yeah, some of these kids are ready to go and some have got a long way to go.
So I'm thinking there's going to be players that have rested, which is fine. The question is, how do we think about getting them in shape for the start of the season. Tom, first games of the season, 9th of September.
Correct. Yeah, nothing this weekend, and then we start league games 9th and 10th.
All right, and they got practices 3 times a week, etc. I'm thinking it's not too late to start getting into shape for players if they start working now, and I'm thinking about stuff that they can do outside of practice. Am I being unreasonable asking players, all right, what can you be doing now to start getting your momentum up or your fitness levels up when you're away from the field with Inter Connecticut in order to play catch up?
I mean, I think that if you've got, if we've got, I'm just looking at my age group, obviously, it might be a little bit different for the younger teams, but my U13 and U14s, if we got 3 training sessions a week, so we've got, 6 training sessions before we actually play a game. We just had the Jamboree on the weekend, so they've got some running into their legs there. When they're not with us training, maybe that's when they can do a bit more of the resistance training, maybe working on their mobility.
Well, you say that's key. Mobility is key for you, right, Ant?
Yeah, I mean, just think that I definitely see a lot of players that just really lack that mobility. Like, they may actually be able to run kind of at a slow pace for a while, but sort of the changing of direction, the acceleration, the deceleration, cutting, twisting, all that sort of stuff is really lacking. Like, some players look like they're not the most efficient of movers. And we can go into all the reasons why I think that is, but it is just something that at the end of the day is important. We can do, like I said, I feel like we could probably, in 6 training sessions, if I really think, right, my main thing here for the first couple of weeks, especially with some of the groups, is can we get fit enough for the big field? With the 2011s, that's what I'm thinking. So we need to get fit enough for the big field. The 10s are already fit enough, I think. They can do it. But the 11s, we need to maybe make sure the session is intense, playing in a slightly bigger area, so they're getting the miles into their legs. But yeah, when they're away from us, can you do some resistance? Can you do some stretching? Can you do some mobility and get that stuff in? Because it's soccer's not, as we just spoke about before, it's not just about running at a constant pace for 2 or 3 miles. It's an intermittent, dynamic sport. It's sprint here, jog, walk. Don't do anything if the ball goes out of play and there's someone on the ground. Like, you get a 30-second rest. Then you might have to do 10 box-to-box sprints throughout the rest of the game. It's like muscular endurance and power and speed and all them things, as well as just general stamina, which I think sometimes, I think we're doing a better job of understanding that now. And I think Pedro spoke about that before, but I still think for some people, they just think it's just about sort of running consistently, but it's really not.
So I'm hearing there's kind of 2 ways to do this. We got 6 sessions or so. When you're at your session, can you play with intensity now? I'm thinking of players that maybe need to do a bit of catch up. You like work your socks off. Right. And
that's a mental thing as well. Like, I honestly think that some of these kids, they actually don't know what it's like to really push themselves because they've never actually done it. Like, some do, and I can see some of them, like, they're almost like they could throw up when they come off the field. They've worked that hard. But others, the slightest little bit of discomfort, and they want to stop, as opposed to realizing, well, you've kind of got to push past that to get fitter and stronger and faster, and to have any kind of development, you've got to go beyond where you already are. If you just stop when you get slightly uncomfortable, then you're never going to get, you're never going to improve. Yeah,
you're going to push through your comfort zone. So that's that during practice, and then after practice, and when you're home, I've taken to doing 30 push-ups every day now myself, and a couple of sit-ups, although that did lead to
Get away from the sit-ups.
But
good luck.
Players can do push-ups and sit-ups, and and a few lunges and stuff. on their own. I'm thinking as well, just to
I think all the information's out there, right? It all comes down to the individual. I think certain players are more motivated depending on their age. You know, if I'm part of that Quinny's age group, that U13, U14, and I want to be part of the USL, then I've got to do things on my own. My younger guys, we can do things a little bit different. You know, we can get that mobility and that little bit of fitness in maybe just playing like a game of tag. You know, to the untrained eye, it looks like, oh, Coach Tom's having a lazy one. He's just having them run around. But we are actually, we got to get the kids understanding why we do things. So I do think there's that aspect of it. If you are similar to myself, I always struggled working out. I always had to do it with someone else. And then that's maybe where, you might say to a few of your friends, especially if you're in a carpool situation, let's get the practice 30 minutes before and do a little conditioning workout, or maybe get yourself down to SPU as a group and have a few players. I know we have a couple of kids who come in from Westport who go to SPU, a few kids from Wilton, and then you're in the gym and there's 3 or 4 of them and they start saying, oh, how much are you deadlifting? What are you squatting? And then there's that little bit of competition amongst themselves to keep driving them on. And then overall, instead of just having one really fit player, if you're in that environment, you're going to get 2, 3, 4, and there ends up being a ripple effect, because then nobody wants to be that odd person out who's not, keeping up with their teammates and kind of pushing themselves to keep going, get fitter, get healthier, and also prevent injuries, which I think is a big thing for kids around this age group, because we are officially 1 day into the season and I've already had 5 emails from players who are starting to go through that growth spurt. Their ligaments are flaring up, they might be rolling an ankle. So, that is another good aspect of one, getting stronger and strengthening those areas. It's going to help minimize injuries.
Pedro, I'm going to come to you in a minute just to talk about attitude of players between, and I know you've seen them and you've helped players that end up making it attitude wise versus players that don't. But just for the audience, I know, Tom, you talked about SPU. Just for those that don't know, SPU is Sport Performance U. It's our performance partners. It's actually the home of where our office is and where we do the VOs and staff meetings, 37 Danbury Road in Wilton. And yes, we joined up with them because we did see the benefits of performance training. And we do have actually, no money's made on this, but we have actually at the start of the season a year-round opportunity where it's 62% off if you commit to all year training. You do get a biomechanical integrity test to work out where you're prone for injuries based on imbalances, and it also helps you with your strength, balance, coordination. And I have to say, the players that have participated in this over the last year or last 2 years really seen them thrive in confidence as a person as well. Anthony, I think you've seen a couple of players, without mentioning any names, that's
quite a few. Quite a few have been going through that. It's something that you probably, I don't know, I think that sometimes maybe players or parents maybe don't see or understand the benefit of it, especially at a younger age. But when you see the levels that some of the players have kind of improved upon, the ones that have gone there, it's just another way to kind of, get your conditioning right and separate yourself from other people. If you're all doing a similar type of training with us, if you're then going away and putting in a couple of extra hours a week on that side of it, that's, over the course of 12, 18 months, that's really going to add up and it's going to make a big difference.
Perfect.
And also, if it helps with your injury prevention, if you're not missing time, like some players are out for, weeks, sometimes even occasionally months at a time because of maybe a reoccurring injury. If you can get your injury prevention in there through doing this sort of stuff, that's going to mean more time on the field, right? And then more time on the field means you got more time to develop as well.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot with the mental side of injuries as well. As somebody who's always suffered with ankle injuries, I know as a kid, if I had something like this, that would have helped me strengthen my ligaments in my ankles or improve my mechanics of how I moved. I think it would have helped me a lot. And I know kids that have had these issues with pains in their knees from the way they're growing so fast, or pains in their feet from, again, growing so fast. You can see the confidence of like, oh, I'm feeling that because of this, but I'm working on that in the gym to make it stronger. And they kind of understanding your bodies. The kids go through a lot in this, that pre-puberty into puberty age group, and they have no idea what's happening with their bodies. So working with the coaches that we have at SPU really does help them understand it, one, like physically, but two, mentally as well.
Brilliant. Just for those that want to find out a little bit more information on that, on our website under programs, you'll see Sport Performance U. We have programs that are seasonally, so trimester, 13 weeks. Like I said, there's also the year-round thing. But as promised, Pedro, I'm going to come to you regarding the mentality of players that really want to make it. When I say make it, the highest level that they can.
Well, I say to my players when I have them for the first time in the season, is your mindset. Are you ready to sustain what is ahead of you? Are you ready to challenge not just yourself, but the guy next to you or the girl next to you? Because that will make a difference where you starting a game or you not starting a game or not even getting on the roster in a high school if that's the case. And that's important, is how they come to the field, what is their approach, what is their body language. That all that makes a difference how they going to perceive on their attitude on and off the field, because I truly believe that you can only become as great as you think you are if you are humble enough to work more than others next to you, and by leading through example, you will be raising their game, and at the same time, when you raise the game, the guys around you or the girls around you, you will be bringing the level high from the whole team and individually as well.
That's great advice, Pedro. And it's no coincidence that the players that stay behind to do extra or get there early to do extra are the ones, or the people that go away and do extra on their own. I think, I can't remember who it was talking about, it might have been LeBron James was talking about the players on basketball that get up earlier and have an extra practice session before their 10 o'clock practice session. And if you do that and exponential growth as you go along. So just bear that in mind. And with that in mind, little plug for our InterCT Extra Time, because that's exactly what it's for. We have the field at Sport Performance U. We've got the trainers. These sessions just for 4 players in each of the 2 age groups. I think we've got 15s and 14 boys, 15, 14 girls, 13 and 12s. Yeah, so 7v7, 9v9, and 11v11 format. 1 hour, intense, small groups, just to really get up to speed with the technical elements as well. So again, if you look on the programs, look under Extra Time, small group clinics. We are starting that in September, and it will be a 6-week block. Great opportunity for players to get, and I used to run them myself. Coach Amadi is going to be doing it now. He has a background in small group clinics, so really making sure that these players can get up to speed, and that is that extra work that we're talking about. Well, I didn't mean that to turn into a plug, but it did. So it just so happens that we have some of these things available for our players. So closing comments. I know we're rambling on a little bit, but any other business, Tom?
I think we can't finish the podcast without talking about how happy you was on Sunday on that video you posted on social media. having known you nearly 8 years, that might have been the biggest smile I've ever seen you have
That's
on your
true.
face.
I know Leon for what, 4 years, 5 years now, going into my club commitment. So that was the biggest smile I ever had from Leon.
I didn't know you could smile, Leon.
No, well, as you can see, I've had me braces, and I've kept me lips closed. And
Yeah, I could hear your jaw creaking. I hadn't opened that wide before.
I think the only time I was that happy is when you gave me that great big chocolate bar from Hershey.
Do you still have a portion of that chocolate, or it's gone?
Well, it's close to going. Although the wife had to cut it up into little pieces because, I nearly broke my teeth.
Yeah, man. I think jokes aside, though, man, the achievement that you and Marty have been able to do for this club to get us that turf field. I think Anthony's been our next longest serving member of staff, and I think the amount of meetings he's had in his career here about what we're going to do at All Saints, what we're going to do with the clubhouse, what we're going to do with this, are we ever going to get any grass? And the fact that over the space of the summer, 2 months, we've not only put a turf field in, but drastically improved our grass areas as well is, like I said, massive credit to you, Leon, and Marty, but something the club can be proud of. And you can see that just by the engagement on social media of how happy everyone is, one for the club, but also personally for yourself and Marty.
Thank you, Tom, and it really is a proud moment. I finished practice at 5:30 yesterday. I think I left All Saints at 7:30. I kept just looking at it.
Yeah, that's my worry. You wouldn't leave All Saints when it wasn't so nice. So I don't know if we got to get you a bed set up or a hammock that we can put on one of those new nice fence poles we've got. So,
well, I might have to, mate. Put my house up on the
collateral.
If you see me end it with a pillow, then you know what's happened. But guys, thank you ever so much for joining us today. It's been great to do these podcasts and just talk about the club, but it's great also now for a bit of education for parents and for players regarding start of the season. And hopefully as we go on, there'll be more tidbits as we go along. But thanks again for everyone, and we'll see you on the field.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Interview Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website, www.interctfc.com.